Alright guys, today what we're looking at is GIMP, the GNU Image Manipulation Program. That's what GIMP stands for. And you can download this program for free over at gimp.org. It's an amazing free graphics tool, and today we're going to talk a little bit about perspective, and I'm going to show you some of the process that I used to come up with this. In fact, originally the image was this. This is just an avatar I wanted to work on. Downloaded this one, so I didn't actually create this part, but I did paint this part. So I want to show you a bit of how I went about this, how we're going to make a flat phone, in my case the Pine phone, and then we're going to change the perspective. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about vanishing points and some other things in the art world that you might want to know about for creating the right 3D perspective. So let's get started, and I'll try and talk through each step as we go along the way. We may not finish the whole thing today, but I wanted to give you an idea of how to use the tools that are in GIMP, or GIMP some might pronounce it. So the first thing we're going to want to do in order to cut out this, because we'll need to cut this out in order to manipulate the perspective, is we're going to use a tool up here, right here, and you're going to do that. You're also going to want to round the corners, as you see I've done here, and as we can see, the corners of the thing we're cutting out are actually rounded, so we're going to want to make sure, and we may need to fool around with the settings more, but we will see how it looks. So what we need to do is round the corners. Okay, we need to, as you can see, watch as it changes on us. And we're gonna, oops, that was an accident. So see how it's already wrapped around the corners now? So that's perfect. That's just what we need. That way we don't have to airbrush too much in the picture. We just want to kind of get as close as we can to the very edges. Looks like I got a perfect cutout. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down to Edit, right click, Edit, then Cut. Then we're going to paste as a new. Go to Edit again, paste as a new image, because we're going to be working in a fresh space. Now what I want you to do is we're going to increase our canvas size. So we'll go up here, we'll go down to Image, then Canvas Size, and what this is going to allow us to do is create a, and I'm doing percentage. You can do pixels, but percentage is much quicker. Then we're going to interlock this chain back together, and what that'll do is making the width and the height will both increase at the same time. If you ever want to just increase the height of the outside of the whole image, then you can unlock this chain and just do that. As you can see, it just works within that space now. So what we're doing is we're locking this, and I'll try and do more beginner videos on GIMP. I want people to see how amazing the open source tools are for art. You know, you can really get a lot of really cool stuff done. You can work as a professional graphic designer, and I wanted to display some of those steps along the way that you might want to use. And then once you do this, you'll go to Resize, and I will leave a link to, or I'll leave an actual copy of the original picture we're working with. So now what are we going to do? Well, see how it has this little outline? That's the actual layer. See, with GIMP we work in layers. That allows us to manipulate certain parts while leaving other parts untouched. That way you can layer different things on top, like we see in the final piece. We have a layer that I work on. That way if I mess up, I can just delete the layer and start over without interfering with the original layer or picture underneath. So, hope that was clear. Make sure to leave a comment if any of this isn't clear. And now what we're going to do is go up to Layer. I'm going to go Layer to Image Size. And what that does is it makes the layer as big as the whole canvas. So, hope that was clear. Let's go ahead and transform it now. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down here to this tool here, and it is the transform tools. What we're going to do is we could even work with we have two options here. We could work with the hold this down, click and hold down over that icon there. Then we could go to 3D perspective, or we could go to unified transform. I'm just going to show you in the example. Now with a vanishing point, how that works is you have an imaginary point in the screen. This can help you make architecture more realistic and three-dimensional looking. So you have the imaginary vanishing point, and what you'll do is when you transform these images, as you can see I'm doing here with some of this, and let's go ahead and make it a little smaller. And we go to zoom out. We want to make sure we have plenty of space to work with. So we'll go ahead and do that there. And so what we're doing next, and since I can't see the points, I'm going to zoom out once again. Okay, now I can see everything. So what I'm doing here is I'm making it look like it's at an angle. And how am I doing that? I'm manipulating these corner points, and where imaginary vanishing point would be here. Now how does that work? Well, say if I had a pen or a pencil and I use this right here, I could basically create, as you can see how it aligns with this angle here, and I would create that, and then I would also do the same here, and that would make the vanishing point about here. Just doing it for the example here, and wanted to show you. So say you're walking down a long hallway, you may want to add that vanishing point. In order to, if I increase the canvas size, I could actually add it right here. And what that would do is allow you to work in the perspective on both sides and all angles. And it really brings a three-dimensionality to your pieces. What we see here is the phone has now been manipulated to be at an angle. And what we could do next is create the side here. Now here's one way you might want to do that. I'm just using examples today to kind of walk you through the process. So we would go over here, we would then use that tool once again, the selection tool, and we would go down here and we would select it, making sure to round those corners again. And what it will allow us to do is make a perfect cutout. And at that point we'll right click, we'll go to edit, and then we're going to cut it out again. And then we're going to go ahead and paste it, edit, right click again, paste as, new layer. And what we'll do now is we're going to move it over here. And I'm going to go over some more of the layers in a future video, as I didn't want to make it. I was originally going to put the penguin on it, but you know, at this point I'd have to go back, and I don't want to have to confuse anyone. So we're just doing basic perspective today. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make that layer image size again, and what we're doing here is we can resize it. We can actually create a new layer. See, what happens is you may want to create a new layer, which we have done already. Now what we're going to do is resize it. And we go down to the layer, then we can go down to resize it and make it meet the phone size. What we're going to do is we're first going to line up our layer here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to resize it by going up to layer, scale layer. That's going to resize it for us. And then at that point we can do percent here, or you can do pixel, but I always prefer percent. It gives me a better estimate because I can't always count the pixels, but I can count the average of percents that it is larger than the phone here. So we can use that in our head as a little bit of a easier way to scale it. And as you see, it's still a little too long. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back up to layer. We're going to go to scale layer again. So we're going to just do the basic perspective video today. And now what I'm going to do, as you can see, it kind of looks funny. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to move this layer. So now we have the side layer. We're going to put it underneath the other one, and see how nice and flush that looks now. So see what happened. Originally we had the layer of the side on top of the actual phone screen. But here, what we do is we simply drag it down, and now it's underneath. So now it looks more three-dimensional and it looks more natural. And at this point, we can take a tool and actually add a shadow to it. We could even airbrush a bit and clean up any inconsistencies in it. But for the sake of the shortness of this video, what I'd like to do is just show you how to make a shadow. And we're going to layer to image size once again, because we want to ensure that we don't actually put a shadow that's cut off by the shortness of our layer, if that makes sense. Now what we're going to go up to is filters, and we're going to do light and shadow. Then we're going to go down to drop shadow, and watch how this works out for us. In fact, first off, what we need to do is we need to actually make them one layer, because if we were to do it on just the screen or the side, that would only make the layer that we had selected a shadow of that. We want to ensure it's a shadow of the whole phone. So what we're going to do now is right click on the pasted layer. We're going to go up to merge down. And what does that do? That creates the phone as one device, one single object. And now we can go up to filters. We can go to light and shadow, drop shadow, and see how we can make that nice little shadow. So we can increase the opacity, which means makes it darker here. We can also change other things such as the blur radius. We can make a little more blurry, a little less blurry. You know, we can grow that radius and make it larger. So we'll go with that. We'll something like that, and then we'll hit OK, and you have that nice phone. It looks three-dimensional now, and we can right click on it, and it's one layer since we did the merge down. We go to cut, we go over to our original, and we can go ahead and paste it right in here. So right click, edit, then new layer. Huge phone. We're going to need to shrink it down. So we're going to go back up to layer. We're going to go to scale layer, and we're going to shrink that down a lot more. In fact, we're going to go all the way down to 30% and see how that looks. Still a little bit large, but we can shrink it down once more. Scale layer, percent. We'll go ahead and try this, 80%. We don't want to go too far, because if we shrink it too far down and then have to resize it, well, it could become pixelated, and we don't want that to happen. So we're going to go and, take our time shrinking it. Now that we've done that, we're going to go to this move tool, and we're going to move it here. And as you can see, it looks like the phone is right here in front. And now what we can do is actually hold a PinePhone in our hand, use that as a reference, and then what we can do is we can start to paint the hand on the phone. And that's how I created this final image. I used this tool here, which is the color picker tool, and then I clicked on the color I wanted to use. Then I would use one of the brushes or pencils, and I would start illustrating that hand, finishing it up with some airbrushing. So that's how you work in three-dimensionality in GIMP. So I hope this has been a helpful lesson in perspective, and hope you enjoyed this video on graphic design. And let me know what you think in the comments. Do you want to see more videos on graphic design? Do you want to see other types of videos? Let me know what you think, and let me know if anything wasn't clear, and I'll be happy to offer some help in the comments. That's what I have today, guys. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll be back later with more on Linux.